Hello? Let's see, are we live? It looks like we're live. Hello there, Levi. It's Levi B. You guys ready for some more adventure? Wait for some more folks to show up. Hi, I really like your content. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Joaquin, thank you so much. No, Levi, I still have no plans on Nickelodeon All-Star movesets. Yes, Dark Meta Knight, the new Paper Mario 1000 Year Door remake. I am excited, and I'm sad that it isn't out today. How am I doing? Doing alright. How you doing, Martin? Can you guys hear me alright? Music's not too loud or too quiet? Yes, Alonzo, I am also super happy about Paper Mario. Let's donate for my hospital bill? I don't have a hospital bill, not yet. Don't worry about it, Wahid. I appreciate that, though. Can you ask an important question? I may be able to give you an important answer. Wait just a bit longer before I get started. And thank you so much for the 41 months, Angel Troid. My thing is probably still not updated yet, has it? I say probably, but I know it's not. I haven't updated it yet. Have I considered Chain Chomp for Smash? Only if he gets enough requests. Ooh, that was a weird voice crack. Need to drink water. Careful, Rye. If you spam too much, Nightbot will get you. Do I prefer Yarn Kirby or Yarn Yoshi? Never played either. Would I be capable of making an adventure mode like this, but with more bosses and more series represented? I need help with an adventure mode like that for a fan game? I mean, I don't really plan on helping anybody else, so my apologies on that. If you want to take inspiration from what I do here, be my guest. I don't mind, but like, I really can't directly help anybody. How's my hands? Unfortunately, not much improvement. In fact, I'm almost worried that it might be getting worse, because I keep feeling like on the top of my arm bits of pain, which is kind of new. So, yeah, that appointment with the hand surgeon that I have coming up can't come soon enough. So we'll see where that goes. You're here for Dan Abiki? We'll get to Dan later. Do I regret making the new thumbnails? No. Why would I regret making those? That was probably one of the best decisions I made in my life. Favorite announcement of the direct outside of Thousand Year Door? Well, I'm gonna have to say Thousand Year Door. Yeah, Dark Lord. I just have, yeah. We went over this in my last adventure mode stream. I just have it listed here before we move on. Opinion on the new Peach game? I think it looks interesting. I don't think I'm gonna get it, but it looks interesting enough. Could someone tell me what he's doing for this stream? I am going over the hypothetical Smash Brothers Adventure mode that I started working on ever since my hand got injured. Because since I can't draw, I haven't been able to make movesets. So being able to think of fun ideas to possibly start working on once my hand gets better, alongside the movesets, it's just kind of all I've been able to do. Hey Rai, do you see the red words listed at the bottom of the video, or are you just ignoring those? Have I seen the Mortal? Yeah, I have. Like, I almost wonder if the facial detail and the graphics of the Switch game, of the Switch Mortal Kombat 1 game, was like intentional as like a jab to the Switch being a toaster. Alright, well, we got a number of people here, so you guys ready to get started? Because we got to pick up from Pac-Man, which I actually have listed here as Pac-Man, Dig Dug, and Galaga. So these three games are going to be a part of the same world. I originally had it as Pac-Man / and Namco, but after doing more research on it overall, I think just limiting it to these three games, I think is enough. Alrighty, so the Pac-Man... So going over the Pac-Man enemies, specifically. Because I haven't fully gone over, like decided exactly how I'm going to kind of go over with all this stuff. Like, I got some ideas after going through all their games and such. Something else I also went ahead and did. I went ahead and brought down the item count per world, the unique item count per world, to 5 items. I know that's going to create a situation where some currently existing items in Smash would be forced to get cut as a result. But I think having 5 items per series is already a lot of items. So I think that's fine. It's necessary sacrifices. Alright, so for the Pac-Man enemies. First off, we have the normal ghosts. So this is not the ghost gang. This is just ghosts. Float around in the air patrolling the area. When aggressive, they float toward the player while waving their arms forward all spooky-like. Ooh. When close, they'll try to slap the player. They may also just charge at the player and try to ram them. When KO'd, only their eyes are left, which fly away. And they can come in a variety of colors, all except for red, pink, cyan, and orange. But there is no difference between the colors. It's purely aesthetic. We have sword skeletons from Pac-Man World. They walk around, patrolling the area. Some may be found lying on the ground pretending to be dead to ambush the player. When aggressive, they'll run at the player while swinging their swords all wildly. And they do have a variant in the form of the torch skeletons, which carry torches instead of swords. And they can blow on their torches to create a stream of flames that travel forward. Next are Revroll Rams, also from Pac-Man World. And I believe a form of this enemy also appeared in another Pac-Man game. I forget what the game was called, but this was technically not the first instance of a ram enemy appearing in Pac-Man. This is just the first instance of the Revroll Ram specifically. In which case, they walk around aimlessly or will just graze. They usually hang out in herds, and when aggressive, they start rolling in place to rev up, then will charge toward the player's direction. While rolling, they will ricochet off walls or other enemies, and they can roll off ledges. So they're not very, what's the word? Self-sufficient, I suppose. Next are Pukas from Dig Dug. They walk around slowly, they turn around at walls and ledges, they can phase through solid objects to move to new locations, done so in an attempt to ambush the player, though their goggles will always remain visible. When aggressive, they'll curl up and launch themselves at the player, dealing very weak damage, and each time a Puka takes damage, it slightly inflates. Once it inflates too much, it'll pop, which KOs it, but over time it will deflate and can only be KO'd by popping it, and the Puka popping can hurt other enemies. That's a bit of a tongue twister. Sorry about that. Wait, what happened to me? Oh, regarding my hand, it's tendinitis, effectively. That's the short answer. There was a longer answer, but it's tendinitis. So, and I plan on seeing a hand surgeon later this month. Hopefully, we can get that fixed up from there. Okay, next up. So, these two enemies are from Galaga, and I bet you guys didn't realize that the enemies that fly around at the top of the screen that you gotta shoot, they got names. Zakos from Galaga. Large bee-like enemies that fly around in the air, usually appearing in swarms. When aggressive, they fly down erratically toward the player and will try to ram them, then will fly back into the air. They may also shoot energy shots at the player from their stingers as they fly down. They can also shoot at you before charging down as well. If only one Zako is left alone, it will transform into a Midori and split into 3. They will all fly at the player while firing fast energy shots at them. Then we have Goes from Galaga, moth-like creatures that fly around in the area. In the air, I should probably fix that word. In the air. They usually hang out in swarms, mixing in with Zako. When aggressive, they'll swoop down and try to ram the player, and they can also shoot at you with thin laser beams as they fly down. But they can also shoot at you before charging as well. If one Goe is left alone, it'll transform into a scorpion and split into 3. They'll all dive at the player erratically while firing homing stinger shots, and when close up, they snap at the player with their claws. Now for the strong enemies, here's the Ghost Gang. So this is specifically Blinky, Pinky, Inky, and Clyde. They float around in the air, patrolling the area. They also like to make scary faces. They usually appear together as a group of 4, but on rare occasions you might find one of them alone or in groups of 2 or 3. When you deplete one of their health, that ghost turns blue and remains stationary in a stunned state. In order to KO them, you have to turn the whole group blue. Once they all turn blue, their bodies disappear, only leaving their eyes, which fly off. If you take too long, the blue ghosts can return to normal. It's implied that you encounter them multiple times since their eyes get away after you KO them, so they just keep coming back. When aggressive, they can charge at the player to try to ram them, but their overall behavior is dependent on their color. The red one, Blinky, he actively chases the player, so he's always aggressive. He has a scream attack that stuns the player in place. The pink one, Pinky, she likes to hide and ambush the player. She can freeze the player in place with a chilly breath. The cyan one, Inky, likes to stay close to the ground, walls, or ceilings. He can make the player dizzy by spinning them. And then there's Clyde, who kind of just floats around aimlessly, but he can belt fireball wisps that wander around the screen. So Clyde's probably the most unpredictable one. Mostly because he's the most head-empty one. Next we have Fygar. So these are the enemies. These are the dragon enemies from Dig Dug. They walk forward. They tend to turn at walls and ledges. They can phase through solid surfaces to move to new locations, done so in an attempt to ambush the player, though their eyes and mouths will always remain visible. When aggressive, they can spit a stream of fire straight forward, and they can also spit fireballs at the player. They can also bite the player. Each time a Fygar takes damage, it slightly inflates. Once it inflates too much, it pops, KOing it, so just like the Puka. Over time, it will deflate, though it can only be KO'd by popping. And the Fygar exploding can hurt other enemies. And there is a variant in the form of the Neo Fygar. These are red and much rarer versions. They are slightly stronger and faster than the green Figars, and they can spam their fireball attacks. Then there's Robo. So this is an enemy from the game Dig Dug Arrangement. Little robots that walk forward. They turn at walls and ledges. When aggressive, they charge at the player, spinning their arms forward. So they do kind of like that kind of deal. Each time a robo takes damage and slightly deflate, so it's all the same. Oops, copy paste. It's all the same rules applying here. So pretty much all of the Dig Dug enemies can only be KO'd by popping them. You have to attack them enough to inflate them. Then there's Boss Galaga. Much rarer enemies. Thank you so much, Sackboy for the win. I appreciate that. They fly around to the top of the screen, usually hanging out around swarms of Zako and Gobe. When aggressive, they'll dive down at the player and try to ram them. They may also shoot wide energy waves at the player as they fall. They can also shoot at you before charging down as well. Sometimes when it flies down, it may activate a tractor beam over the player's location to try to abduct them. Once it catches you, it'll fly toward the top blast zone. The caught player has to escape by mashing buttons, because if they don't escape, they get brought to the top blast zone. And then it's bad news. When its health drops below half, it turns purple, which doesn't really change anything. It just lets you know that it's getting weaker, and it cannot be grabbed. We do have some obstacle enemies as well. Ghost Figars from Dig Dug Arrangement. So these are just ghostly Figars. They teleport on screen when the player gets close. They float around the area and are always aggressive. So they actively chase the player. They can breathe a long range stream of blue flames forward. They can bite the player, then back up, which will stun the player in place. And they can pass through walls, but their eyes and mouths are always visible. So these are more mobile, non-killable Figars. So they're just there to be a pain. Do I have any ideas for the final boss of the adventure mode? No, I haven't thought of a final boss just yet. I'll think of one maybe eventually. Next is Baccaras, which are from Xenius. I'm wondering actually if I should go ahead and keep these or not. These were an enemy that showed up in Smash Run. The slow spinning square panels that fall from the top of the screen to the bottom, touching one deals damage, projectiles will be left reflected off them. I guess I can keep them, it's no big deal. So this will be the one enemy that technically doesn't show up in the 3 prior games, Pac-Man, Dig Dug, and Galaga. Alright, mini-bosses. First, there's Boss Puka from Dig Dug Arrangement. A large blue puka with long legs. Oh my goodness, my tongue twisting today. And a wick for a tail. The stage takes place underground with many platforms. It actively chases the player around, albeit kinda slowly. It takes reduced damage from all attacks. Hitting it with a melee attack causes your character to actually bounce away from it, but it takes normal damage from explosions. And if you hit its tail with an explosion or fire attack, it slowly whittles away. Once the tail is fully gone, Boss Puka explodes, which will automatically KO it. So that's a faster way to kill it. But this can also hurt the player, so get clear once you see it start to flash. As for its attacks, it doesn't actually have that many. It can curl up and roll at the player like the normal Pukas. It may try to kick the player. It can bounce around the screen, smashing into the spots it bounces into. It may trip over, which can deal damage to players in its way when it falls over. And during the fight, Pukas and Robos will also be walking around the area. It can call an order forcing all Pukas on screen to become super aggro and start actively chasing the player. Is Chaos from Sonic a boss? No, I did not make Chaos a boss. Other mini-boss of the Pac-Man world is King Galaxian. Floats around in the air from side to side. It has 4 eyes, which each have individual health bars. And for those who may not know, King Galaxian was actually a boss in Pac-Man World. Thinking of giving up my adventure mode? You don't need to. Just gotta work at it, bro. So let's see. Once all 4 eyes are destroyed, the battle will end. So its health bar is directly connected to its eyes. After one of the eyes is destroyed, it moves its face out of range and reveals its tail. You must deal enough damage to the tail to put its face back into range. It uses different attacks based on the position of its face or tail. After 2 of the eyes are destroyed, it reveals its claws and uses new attacks. For the face attacks, it spits energy shots from its mouth at the player. It'll try to inhale the player into its mouth using the tractor beam. If pulled in, the player will be trapped inside and take constant damage, and you have to mash buttons to escape. When the claws are out, it can try to swipe at the player with a claw attack, and it can also smash the stage with both claws into 2 spots at once. For its tail attacks, it can fire 3 energy shots at the player as a spread shot, but when it's down to 2 eyes, it'll start firing a bunch of spread energy shots into all directions. And then for common attacks, it can summon Galaga enemies that will hover around the area, and while it has only 1 eye, it can grant shields to boss Galagas. Then for the world boss, I did go ahead and decide on just making it spooky. I thought about making it Talkman, but when I thought about the context of between Talkman and Spooky, I feel like Spooky contextually is a bit more of a thematically appropriate boss for the Pac-Man world, for the Pac-Man side of the world anyway. So here's hoping that Pac-Man World 2 gets a remake just like Pac-Man World 1 did. So we'll see. Alright, so Spooky. He floats around in the air. When below half health, he will get angry, which makes him move faster, and he gains new attacks. For his attacks, fires a variety of magic wisp shots at the player from his magic scepter. Blue shots will disappear on contact. Green shots burst into flames that persist for a bit after making contact. Purple shots act like the green shots, but they don't count as projectiles, so they cannot be reflected. And red shots are homing shots, which will actively chase the player until they peter out. Though he'll only use the red shots once he's angry. He can turn his scepter into a mace and swing it at the player. He can conjure and throw white bombs that bounce on the ground and explode after a set amount of time, and when angry, he may spam this move. He can summon a meteor shower, causing asteroids to rain down at an angle, and the direction they rain down depends on which way he's facing. When angry, he can cast a dizzy spell into the player's spot, and if hit by it, the player will become disoriented for a little bit. While angry, he can also turn his scepter into a spear and throw it at the player at high speed, then call it back. The spear can hurt the player as it flies back to Spooky as well. And he is also able to summon Pac-Man enemies to the stage. Everybody except for the Ghost Gang. The Revro Rams are a little rarer, and while angry, he tends to do this way more often. So typically, he'll summon like the ghosts, the skeletons, and the Revrolls. Alrighty, so those are the Pac-Man enemies, the Pac-Man Dig Dug Galaga enemies. What do you guys think? Alright. Let's say we go ahead and move on then. So next up is the Xenoblade Chronicles world. And I did go ahead and decide I'm just going to make the worlds, like, Bionis. Like, it's not going to take place in Ionios or Alrest. It's just, it'll be Bionis. So, rule of the first game. Thank you for not including a Ghostly Adventures rep. Did I figure out a gimmick for the Animal Crossing world just yet? Not yet, though my mind has kind of been thinking about maybe making that like a rest world, like a world you can go to like get healing items, like rest up, like maybe get something like that can potentially make the trek a little easier in the future. Like it'll be like a vibe world effectively. That's kind of what I'm thinking of so far, but we'll see. Now, I should mention, the Xenoblade Chronicles world does have a pretty unique element to it in the form of the unique monsters. Every enemy in this world, except for the world boss, has a unique variant. Unique monsters are very rare, but very powerful. They are bigger than the normal versions and usually twice their size. They have way more health, they hit way harder, and some may have additional attacks. All unique monsters will become enraged once their health drops below half. And while enraged, attacks deal more damage, they move faster, and might start using even more attacks. Defeating a unique monster can grant rare items or even extra stocks, so it's well worth it. It's well worth fighting them. If you don't feel like you can beat them, though, it might just be good to get away, depending. It's random when a unique monster appears in place of its normal variant. Each unique monster only has a chance of spawning once per playthrough, but it is possible for different ones to spawn in the same playthrough. So, for example, like, here we have, the first enemy are Crabbles. You will only ever find at most one unique Crabble during a playthrough, but there's also unique Bunnets, so there's a chance you can find both a unique Crabble and a unique Bunnet in the same playthrough, but you'll never find more than one unique Crabble or more than one unique Bunnet, if that makes any sense. Also should be mentioned, unique monsters have a much higher chance of appearing in higher difficulties. But alright, so for the monsters, so first off, like I said, we have Crabbles. So Crabbles are like hermit crab monsters. So I'm not sure, I recall correctly, not a lot of people that watch my videos are that familiar with Xenoblade games. Sadly enough, you guys need to play Xenoblade, they're really good games. So they give you an idea of what these monsters are. So Crabbles are like hermit crab monsters. Slow-moving monsters that patrol the area. Some may be found hiding in their shell and pop out when you get close. They take slightly reduced damage from behind. They can hunker down into their shell, taking reduced damage from all attacks until they come out. When aggressive, they stab their big claw forward. They can use the move Crabble Bash, which lunges forward with their big claw in front to ram the player. And they can also use Bubble Cloud, which sprays bubbles forward that spread apart as they fly. It's a very weak move, but getting hit by it will slow you down for a bit. And their unique variant are Solid Coev. They have a few more moves. So they can use Cavalry, which charges forward with their big claw held forward to try to ram the player. So it's a much stronger version of Crabble Bash. And they also have Ether Break, which I didn't write anything down for, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete that for now. But the unique Crabble is also immune to flinching and cannot be grabbed. This is going to be a pretty common thing for the unique monsters, by the way. Next up are Bunnets. Bunnets they're like thin rabbits with long tails. So they're kind of a mix of like rabbits and lemurs, if that makes any sense. They move around the area aimlessly, only getting aggressive when provoked. When aggressive, they can turn to swing their tail vertically down to slam you, or to slap you. They have Bunnet Bat, which are short hop spins to swing their tail forward laterally. They have Bunnet Upper, which have them do a backflip to swing their tail up, which can knock you into the air. And they may occasionally block attacks, reducing the damage they take. And they do have a normal variant called Wood Bunnet. So these are Bunnets that carry like clubs, like sticks in like their tail. When aggressive, they'll swing their club forward. They have the Rapid Strike art, which short hops spins to swing its club forward laterally 3 times from side to side. And then Bunnet Sack, which has it do a backflip, swinging their club upward. So it's pretty much, Raid Strike and Bunnet Sack are pretty much Bunnet Bat and Bunnet Upper, but with a club. The unique variant of the Bunnet is Evil Rangrat. When aggressive, it'll swing. So this is actually a unique variant of the Wood Bunnet. So the normal Bunnet does not have a unique variant. So when aggressive, they swing their club forward. They have Huge Swing, which short hops and spins to swing its club laterally. This has a lot of knockback. It has Bunnet Combo 2, which has it start with a backflip to swing the club upward, then immediately follows it up with a front flip to swing the club downward. This also has a lot of knockback. And Evil Ragnarok is immune to flinching from weaker attacks. So it can flinch from stronger attacks, and it can be grabbed. But that's about it. Next are Skeeters. So Skeeters are like these these giant mosquito-looking monsters. We still on Xenoblade? We just started Xenoblade. So Skeeters fly around patrolling the area. They tend to dart from spot to spot, so they move like this. Kind of like that. When aggressive, they'll charge to try to ram you, and if this hits, they will U-turn to get some distance away, so they're hit and runners. They have the move Double Hit, which charges at the player and tries to headbutt them twice. And they have Butterfly Powder, which has them release dust from their wings in a small area around itself. Players hit by this dust will be paralyzed for a little bit. And their unique variant is Altruistic Maribel. They have the move Life Absorb. They can latch onto you and start biting. This heals the Skeeter for half the damage it deals, and it deals no hit stun, so you have to attack it to get it off. Maribel is also immune to flinching from weaker attacks, and it in general cannot be grabbed, mostly because it's too fast and it's always in the air. So even if you could grab it, it'd be impossible anyway. Next are Wolves. So these are like hyena wolves kind of deal. They walk around patrolling the area, may sometimes be sleeping, but they usually will hang out in packs. They can also ambush the player, so they can appear out of nowhere on you. When aggressive, they actively chase the player. They can lunge in for a bite. They have Plunging Fang, which will have them dash with a bite. And if this lands, the Wolf will do the shaking, tearing attack, which deals a lot of damage and hit stun. And they have Beast Howl, which has them howl into the air and aggro all other nearby enemies. It's very likely to use this first. So if a wolf sees you, everyone's going to see you. And their unique variant is Lapdog Vis. Its bite attacks will poison the player. It has Scratch and Bark, which has it roar to shoot a compressed sound wave forward that will pierce through players. It has Terrible Howl, which has it howl to increase the damage output for itself and all nearby enemies, which also aggroes all enemies. So Terrible Howl will replace Beast Howl because it's just a better Beast Howl. It's also immune to flinching from weaker attacks, and it can also not be grabbed. It's too big. Next are Arachnos. These are spider-like enemies, like stony spider-like enemies. They walk around patrolling the area. You may also occasionally find egg sacs, which will hatch into Arachnos when you get too close. They can climb on walls and ceilings, I don't know what's wrong with my mouth today. And they also typically will hang out in swarms. When aggressive, they will actively chase the player, and they can attack with a bite. They also have the Ankle Bite attack, which has them reel up and do a strong, low bite. This will trip you if it lands. And they have Spider Web, which turns and sprays a stream of webbing from its rear forward. And getting hit by this will slow the player's movement speed. And their unique variant, I keep forgetting to put that down, is the Unobstructive Leggy. It moves much faster and always has some normal Arachno following it. It has the move Dive Break, which has it charge up and then does a strong bite forward, which deals a lot of damage and knockback. And it's also immune to flinching from weaker attacks and cannot be grabbed. Next are Pepitos. So these are like these little these lanky chipmunk-looking monsters that first appeared in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. They were not in Xenoblade Chronicles 1, which might make it a little weird for some people that I'm putting that for them to be in the setting for the Bionis, but who cares? Pepitos are rare enemies that move very quickly. They are more likely to run away instead of fight, but if they do get aggressive, they throw rocks at the player. They have the art Pew Pew, which has them enter a sidestep state where it avoids all damage for a little bit. And they have Escape Route, which has it start digging, kicking up dirt and dust that obscures vision. But if not stopped, the Pepito will burrow away, so it'll get away. But items may rarely be dug up while it burrows away, so there's the caveat there for you. But Pepitos in general will also drop rare items and such when defeated. Now, its unique variant is actually one of the stronger unique variants. Chicken Heart Dagmara. This is a very, very dangerous unique monster in the context of Xenoblade. It does not run away, and it is the strongest normal enemy. It can do everything aside from escape routes. And it uses the move. It has the move Master Art, where it pulls out its own little lightsaber and performs a 4-hit combo attack. The first hit, where it effectively re-performs the entire break, topple, launch, smash combo on you. Where the first swing deals hit stun, the second swing trips you to the ground, the third swing launches you into the air, and the final swing meteor smashes you back into the ground. And if all 4 of those attacks connect onto you, like, it's an automatic KO. You just die. It's the most dangerous normal enemy. Like, one of the most dangerous unique monsters. And it is also immune to flinching and cannot be grabbed. Stream is lagging. Is that just you, Pichu, or is anybody else experiencing that? Is anybody else experiencing lag? You guys are fine? Alright, cool. Alrighty then. It's not lagging, but everything is blurry. That might be YouTube then, because everything is fine on my end. Guess we'll see. Alright. You're also on your phone? Oh, that would explain that then. Alright. So for the strong enemies of the Xenoblade Chronicles world, first are the Brogs. Brogs are like these giant frogs. They move around patrolling the area. When aggressive, they whip their tongues forward toward the player. They have the Smash Art, which has them clap their hands together to smash the player between them. They have Aqua Ball, which has them spray bubbles forward that spread out as they fly. Excuse me. And they have Sumo Press, which has them jump into the air, then crash down with a body slam, and this deals a lot of knockback. They're also naturally immune to flinching from weaker attacks, and can also not be grabbed. Their unique variant, there we go, is Indiscreet Gambaba. So this is a poison version of the Brog. It shoots earth balls, which sprays dirty bubbles forward that spread as they fly. These will poison the player and replaces Aqua Ball, since it's just a better version of Aqua Ball. And it also has Predation, where it backs away and starts eating something, which actually will heal a portion of its HP. But this can be cancelled if the player deals enough damage to it before it finishes eating. So if you see it back away, let it have it. And it's just outright immune to flinching. It cannot flinch. Will this be in adventure mode in 2D or 3D? Well, if it's Smash Bros, and it's 2D. Next strong enemies are the Turken. So these are the the bird-like kind of tribal people that live in the Xenoblade games, and they're understrong because they are a bit more. They have a wide variant to them. Turken walk around patrolling the area. They can jump. They typically hang out in a flock. If one spots the player, they will alert the rest of their flock, turning them all aggressive. One aggressive, normal Turken, which the default Turken all fight with spears. They will stab their spear straight forward. They have the pointy stick art, which has them jump into the air, then fall with their spear pointed down to stab the ground. BJ, learn to use words. But when they use this, they will get stuck for a little bit, leaving them slightly vulnerable. They have Spear of Justice, where they hold their spear into the air, causing it to glow, then do a rapid flurry of stab attack forward. Turken can also pick up and use items, and they may also randomly harken back to Brawl and trip, which can cause them to drop random items. And if they were holding an item when they trip, they will just drop that. For their variants, there's Archer Turken, which will actively run from the player. So these are Turken that fight with bows and arrows. Yes, they actively run from the player, and they have completely different attacks. They can fire arrows at the player from afar. If you get too close, they can swing their bow vertically at you to get away. They have the art Hunter's Venom, which has them shoot an arrow that poisons you if it hits, and then Hunter's Flame, which deals fire damage if it hits. And this art deals more damage than the normal arrow. Next are Musical Turken, which will also actively run from the player and also has completely different attacks. So the Musical Turken are Turken that have like these big horns that they use mostly as like the bard role. They're supporters. They have the art Albatross Wings, which has them blow the horn so hard that the sound waves knock players away. They have Desperate Charge, which grants all nearby enemies faster attack speed. And they have Warrior Pride, which heals itself and all nearby enemies. Now, the Turken actually have 3 unique variants, all of which are based on the different versions of the Turken. The first, the Spear variant of the unique ones, is Vagrant Alfred. It can do everything the normal ones can do, along with Motivation, which raises its spear into the air and buffs the attack speed of itself and all nearby enemies. And it's also naturally immune to flinching from weaker attacks and cannot be grabbed. There's the sniper, the unique sniper Turken called Sniper Paramisia. It has Roar, which roars a war cry, paralyzing all players within range. Also immune to flinching from weaker attacks and cannot be grabbed. Then there's the unique musical Turken called King Kraken. So this is technically the strongest one. Has completely different attacks. Albatross Wings, which has it blow into its horn so hard that the sound waves knock players away, and this actually will deal a lot of damage. Desperate Charge grants all nearby enemies faster attack speed and a damage boost. Then Royal Orders, which summons 2 random unique Turken other than itself to the area. So King Kraken can summon these 2 guys if it wants to. Either one of each or 2 are the same each. And King Kraken is naturally immune to all flinching and being grabbed. So King Kraken is the most dangerous one. For sure. And my music stopped. Why'd you do that, music? Alrighty, next up are Antsels. So Antsels are like these giant birds. They fly around patrolling the area. Some may be perched in a high spot. When aggressive, they actively chase the player. They can fly at the player with their hunting claw ramming you with both claws. They have Gatling Peck, which is a rapid flurry peck attack. They have Feather Vein of Pain, which has them shoot a bunch of feathers from its wings that all home in on the players. If there are multiple players, the feathers can target them all. It has Hawk Shot, which flies to the player's level, then charges straight at them horizontally. They're also naturally immune to being flinching from weaker attacks and cannot be grabbed. And its unique variant is Witchwind Kujat. It has Trick Dart, which is a stronger replacement for Feather Vein of Pain, Hawk Fire, a stronger replacement for Hawk Shot, and War Cry, which is a scream that calls over all nearby enemies, aggroing everybody. And it's also just naturally immune to all flinching. Last strong enemy are Ropals. So these are like, how to describe Ropals? They're kind of gator-like. They only have 2 legs, and long tails. They're kind of hard to describe, actually. They're probably the most unique kind of looking monster out of all these here. But they are large, slow-moving enemies that sit in one spot until they get aggressive. Some might hide underground with their backs poking out to camouflage themselves as rocks, and then they'll come out when you get close. They can also straight up ambush the player by jumping out from underground when the player gets close. When aggressive, they will actively chase you. They can clumsily lunge it forward for a bite. They can use double bite, which is 2 tearing bite attacks forward, which deals a lot of hits done. They have Cursed Cuisine, which has them back up, then slide on their stomach forward to ram the player. Though this will get interrupted if it hits a wall. It has Komodo Fire, which has it spit a long stream burst of flames from its mouth straight forward. It gets propelled backward when it uses this, and it deals a lot of knockback. And Ropals are naturally immune to flinching from weaker attacks and can also not be grabbed. And the unique version is Armored Brennan, which has the additional Fin of Fear, which has a jumped and flips over to smash its back and tail onto the ground, then flips back over. Using this attack will turn it around, and it deals a lot of knockback, and Brennan is naturally immune to all flinching. Now for the Xenoblade mini-bosses. First is the Queen Arachno, so big giant spider. A large enemy that actively chases the player. It can move along the walls and ceiling. When below half health, it will become enraged, so the mini-bosses are the only ones that can get enraged, even if they're not unique. For its attacks, it can lift one of its front claws and smash it into the ground. It has Queen Bite, which does a strong bite attack with all 4 fangs forward. It has Queen Bomb, which uses a web slinger from its rear to pull itself off screen, then drops down to try to crush the player underneath it, and you'll know where it's about to fall based on the small amount of rubble that falls from the ceiling. It has Cocoon, where it backs away and hunkers down. While hunkered down, it takes very little damage from all attacks. It has Battle Pheromone, where it can summon 2 to 4 Arachno to the area. And it has Binding Web, where when enraged, it can spit webbing forward that deals no damage, but it will hold you in place if it hits. Now, even the mini-bosses can also have unique variants. So on the very rare chance that you get the unique Queen Arachno, you'll fight Gracious Titania, which has Queen Force. When enraged, this replaces Battle Pheromone. It can summon 3 to 6 Arachno to the area, and this also raises the damage output and attack speed of all the summoned current Arachno. Now for the second mini-boss of the Xenoblade world, it's the Gogol. So these are like the giant, like, apes kind of deal. A large enemy that actively chases the player. When below half, it also becomes enraged, where it deals more damage and needs new attacks. For its attacks, it can do a lateral claw swipe at the player. It can do a rising uppercut slap. It has a headbutt, where after reeling back, it'll lean in to slam its head forward. Donkey Kong style, I guess. It has round slam. Don't know why there's that there. A wide double hammer punch to smash the ground in front of itself, which deals a lot of knockback. It has Venom Cloud, where it sits and farts so hard that it creates a cloud around itself. It has high knockback, and it will poison players hit by it, because gross. And it also has Feral Beat, where it'll only use this while enraged, and it beats its chest, summoning other kinds of monsters to the field. Now, the unique variant of the Gogol is the ever-infamous unique monster that has appeared in all 3 games, the Immovable Gonzalez. So, it has Threatening Roar for one of its attacks, where it roars to lower the offense and defense of all players for a little bit, and this cannot be avoided. And it has Wild Wave, which you can only use while enraged, where it literally fires a Kamehameha at you. It's literally a Kamehameha attack that it does. And getting hit by this move automatically KOs you. So don't. And its Feral Beat can also summon the normal Go-Go mini-boss. So if you're unlucky, you could end up fighting two mini-boss Gogols at once, including the big one. Yeah, so watch out for that. So then, the world boss that I've decided to give to the Xenoblade world, which some of you might be aware of because I made a poll about this, is the Telethia. The Telethia were like the ether monsters from Xenoblade 1. Alrighty, so the Telethia. So this is the Telethia that has 4 legs and 3 heads. So it's the Gigas Telethia. A large enemy that remains mostly stationary but can slowly move around and turn. When below half health, it will become enraged, where it deals more damage and gains new attacks. It takes reduced damage from everywhere except for its heads. Heads, BJ. Has 3 of those. And if you attack the antenna enough, so it has antenna on its head. So, in the story of Xenoblade Chronicles, the antenna that Telethia have on their heads allow them to read your mind. Bosses being able to automatically KO seems a little broken. Nah! Just avoid the attacks. Yeah, so they have antenna that you can break off, which, when you do that, will lock them out of using certain attacks. For their attacks, they can lean back, then lunge forward to thrust its left head forward for a headbutt attack. It can lift its legs up, then swipe the right head forward for a hook attack. It has sleep spin, where it does a full spin to swing its tail around laterally, and getting hit by this has a chance to put you to sleep, but this will negate its knockback. It has sleep bullet, where it fires an ether shot from the middle head straight forward. Getting hit by this also has a chance to put you to sleep, but this will also negate the knockback. It has channel, where the right head smashes the ground, causing red lightning to spread across the ground all around itself. Getting hit by this will paralyze you in place for a bit. It has talent absorb. The left head bends down and starts pooling ether around its mouth. Getting caught in this pooling ether deals small constant damage, and your offense goes down for a bit. It has Soul Read, where it charges, then releases an aura around itself. While surrounded by this aura, it will counter the next attack you hit it with. So this is it reading your mind. So it's able to counter you as a result. But it cannot use Soul Read if its antennas are gone. So if you don't want to deal with a counter attack from a boss, get rid of the antenna as fast as possible. Next is Ether Cannon, where it fires a powerful purple beam straight forward. Then Supernova, which will replace Channel when it's enraged. The right head will smash the ground, causing a lot of red lightning to spread forward. So it no longer spreads around itself, it just spreads straight forward. And getting hit by this deals a lot of damage, and it will paralyze you for an uncomfortable amount of time. Then there's Ultimate Cannon, which will replace Ether Cannon when it's enraged. This will have it also fire a powerful purple beam straight ahead, but it deals a lot more knockback. So it's much more likely to KO you. Then there's Super Aura, which has it start slowly regenerating its own health. So it's a boss that can actually heal itself. But it will only do this when it's already at low health, and it cannot do this at all if you don't get if the antenna is gone. So again, get rid of those antenna. And that is the Xenoblade world. What do you guys think? Baby Yoda fan, read the red text at the bottom of the screen. Also, sorry folks, I'm not talking about anything off topic. I want to stay off topic for these streams. Yeah, more of you need to play Xenoblade games. All 3 games are on the Switch now. You guys have no excuse. Unless you don't have a Switch, then get a Switch first. Alright, next world. The Duck Hunt and Zapper NES games world. So, kind of like the Pac-Man world, this isn't just Duck Hunt. This is mostly games that all were Zapper, like Nintendo Zapper games. So, as a result, so this includes games like, so Duck Hunt, of course. There's Hogan's Valley, there's Gumshoe, and what was the last one? Wild Gunman. That's right. Yeah, that's it. Wild Gunman's actually a pretty important one for this world, actually. So, all right. So for the enemies of the Duck Hunt world, first is the Slouching Outlaw. So the Outlaws, these are the pixelated dudes that appear for Duck Hunt's Down special. There's 5 of them, and each one will actually appear as proper enemies for this world. So the Slouching Outlaw, that's the cowboy that's literally like slouching like this. So he's like one of the weaker ones. So he slowly walks forward, turns at walls and ledges, may occasionally jump out of a window or a door. When aggressive, he holds his spot for a bit, then fires his pistol at the player. If you get too close, he'll try to knock you away with a punch. He can also throw pocket sand at the player to paralyze them for a bit. He can pick up and use items, and only BJ, only one can exist on screen at a time, implying that it's the same outlaw that keeps appearing. Then there's the lanky outlaw. So this is the tall dude. Quickly walks forward, turns at walls and ledges, may occasionally jump out of a window or door. When aggressive, he'll hold his spot for a bit, then fire his pistol at the player. He can throw Molotov cocktails into the air toward the player that deal fire damage on impact. He also actively runs from the player if you get too close. He doesn't like to fight close. Can also pick up and use items. And once again, yeah. So this is the same for all of the outlaws. Like only one of each outlaw can be on screen at a time. Because it's the same dude. It's the same dudes that you're fighting over and over again. Next is the gang cutout from Hogan's Valley, a random cardboard cutout of a gang member that appears from the ground or behind windows. They are stationary when they appear, and they cannot move. They appear when the player gets too close and automatically become aggressive. When aggressive, they shoot at the player, but they go down in one hit. Next are Fluffy Birds from Gumshoe. So, for those who had never heard of the game Gumshoe, which I won't be surprised, I never heard of the game Gumshoe until I did this research. Gumshoe is a game about a dude whose daughter was kidnapped, and he is tasked by the kidnapper to collect like these Black Panther gems to bring to him in order to trade for his daughter's life. And like the idea is that your dude like is constantly walking forward, and you use the zapper to cause him to jump, and that's kind of the deal. It's a zapper platformer game. But there were a lot of enemies in it, so it made filling out the rest of this list way easier. So Fluffy Birds, they fly forward in a slow, erratic wave motion. They turn at walls, and when aggressive, they fly toward the player to try to ram them. Poison Bugs appear from the top of the screen when the player gets close. They're always aggressive, and when aggressive, they'll charge toward the player to try to sting them, which will poison the player. Lucky Birds. A rarer enemy, it flies in the air forward, will turn at walls. When aggressive, it'll charge at you with a peck, and when defeated, they will always drop items or food, which is why they're lucky. Okay, for the strong enemies, next we have the Thieving Outlaws. So this is the dude with like the sombrero and like the poncho, wearing white. He walks forward, turns at walls and ledges, may occasionally jump out from a window or a door. He's very quick, and when aggressive, he actively tries to stay close to you. He can shoot you with his shotgun, which deals a lot of damage, especially when closer, because shotgun. He can also attack with a dashing knife attack, and if you are holding an item when he hits you with the attack, he steals it from you. Beyond that, he can also naturally pick up and use items, but he cannot be grabbed, and once again, only one can be on screen at a time. Then there's the Fancy Outlaw. So this is the taller outlaw wearing like the black suit and like the fedora or whatever that is, the trilby. I forget what kind of hat it is. They walk forward, will turn around walls and ledges, may occasionally jump out of a wall or window. When aggressive, he pulls out his pistol to fire at the player. He can also fire multiple rapid-fire shots from his pistol at the player following their location. If close, he can pull out his officer's sword to slash at the player. And he can also sometimes appear on horseback to try to ram the player, charging from one side of the screen to the other. But if he's attacked while riding the horse, he'll fall off, but the horse will keep going, and after that, he'll behave normally. Can pick up and use items, immune to flinching from weaker attacks, and only one can exist on... Wow, I really just copy and pasted that same line over and over again with a typo in it. I hate my life. Did I do that for the Linky guy too? Yeah, I did. There we go. Okay. Next up, armadillos from Gumshoe. They walk forward. So these are like giant armadillos that stand on two legs. Walk forward, turn around at walls and ledges, can ambush the player by jumping in as a ball. Excuse me. When aggressive, they roll up into a ball and charge toward the player to try to ram them. They take reduced damage while rolled up. They cannot take damage from projectiles while rolled up. They're immune to flinching while rolled up, and they cannot be grabbed while rolled up. Then finally, there's the giant grasshopper from Gumshoe. They hop around in wide leaps to move around, can occasionally start flying to stay airborne for a bit. When aggressive, it'll chase the player to try to ram them. It can also stomp on the player. They're immune to flinching from weaker attacks, and they cannot be grabbed. Then for we do have a single obstacle enemy, civilian cutouts from Hogan's Alley. So the idea of Hogan's Valley is, think of like those carnival games where like it's like you hold the little like pea shooter gun or whatever, and the thing will appear, and you gotta shoot the correct ones. If you shoot the correct ones, you get points. If you shoot the wrong ones, you lose points. That's kind of the deal here. So the gang members are the ones you want to shoot to get points, but if you shoot the civilians, you lose points or you get penalized. So that's the case here. It's a random cardboard cutout of a civilian that appears from the ground or behind windows. They are stationary when they appear and cannot move. They are harmless normally, but if the player attacks them, the player will take a lot of counter damage. And if the player attacks one with over 100% of damage, they will lose a stock. So, don't hit civilians. That's rude. Alright, the mini-bosses of the Duck Hunt world. The leader of the outlaws. So this is the dude in the orange coat and the cowboy hat. That's the leader. Appears multiple times throughout the level, so he's weaker than most mini-bosses. Always appears with other outlaws. Is highly aggressive and tries to give you very little room to breathe. He can flinch when hit by strong enough attacks. So most mini-bosses cannot flinch or be grabbed in general, but there are very few exceptions, with the leader of the outlaws being one of those. For his attacks, he'll shoot at the player with his revolver. He has quick draw, where he holds a readied stance, then if attacked, he counters by shooting at the player, and this deals a lot of knockback. He can strike at the player with the handle of his revolver. He can flail his whip forward to attack, so he fights with a whip. He can use his whip like a lasso to grab players and pull them in. He can also call in a horse to ride. While riding, he can charge forward on it to ram the player. He can pull out his whip lasso to grab the player and drag them behind the horse, which deals small damage until they can escape. He'll only get off the horse if you deal enough damage to him to knock him off. He can also whistle to call in other outlaws, though he can only call outlaws that already aren't on stage. Then for the other mini-boss, it's the Zuli from Gumshoe. So this is like the final boss of Gumshoe. It's a large, slow-moving monster. It's like a Cyclops kind of deal. Its eyeball takes extra damage from attacks. For its attacks, it spits fireballs at the player that explode on impact. It can spit fireballs into multiple angles from low to high. It flails its arms forward for claw attacks. It can do this while standing still or moving forward. It can burrow underground, then pop out under the player's location to launch them into the air. It can jump into the air, then crash down to try to crush the player. It may also fake out and dive underground instead as it falls. And it can also spit a bunch of fireballs into the air, which rain down all over the stage. Then finally, for the Duck Hunt World Boss, this is an original concept that I came up with that I'm calling the Wild Bull. So this is a Western style steam machine. So it's a type of bull themed tank, and it's being piloted by the outlaws. So it's kind of like the outlaws are sitting there trying to mess with you throughout the entire level, and by the end of it, they've had enough and are like, "No, we're taking you down." So they get their big machine. It sits in a stationary spot and only moves when it attacks. It takes reduced damage from all attacks, but it has various weak points that take normal damage from attacks, and these weak points actually take a lot of extra damage from projectiles. The weak points are only visible during certain attacks or circumstances. As health is lost, pieces of the machine fall off, which can make weak points easier to expose. When enough pieces are gone, more attacks start to be used. For its attacks, after revving up, it charges across the screen to try to ram the player, and with enough pieces gone, the outlaws may start shooting wildly while the machine is as it drives. The outlaws in general may also occasionally poke out to take pot shots at the player, and they're more likely to do this when enough pieces are gone. The outlaws can also poke out and throw dynamite at the player. The dynamite can also be picked up and thrown, and it'll explode after a set amount of time, or once it collides with either the player or the boss itself. Alright, have a good night, Baby Yoda. While spilling oil on the ground behind itself, this oil makes the ground slippery. It can peel out and spin in place, spraying oil all over the place. The player gets hurt if they touch the spinning machine, and the oil will fall on the ground in random puddles. When enough pieces are gone, and if there's oil on the ground, one of the outlaws may poke out and throw a match at the oil, lighting it up and causing it to deal damage to the player if they step in it. Though this can also damage the boss as well, some of the outlaws are not very smart. The horns on the machine can open to reveal cannons, which shoot large comedic bombs that explode on contact, though the bombs can be reflected and can also fly backward if hit by a projectile. Then lastly, sometimes the leader of the outlaws will kick out one or two of the other outlaws to make them fight in the arena, and KOing them will make them retreat back into the machine. Alright, so that's the Duck Hunt Zapper world. What do you guys think? It's a very Western themed, mostly. Yes, Crackerbill, we just finished Duck Hunt. A Zapper enemy? Well, I actually made the Zapper an item. Or a duck or a duck. Oh, actually, I probably should mention, yeah. Ducks are here, but they're a world they're a world element. They can be found flying in the area. They fly away when fighting occurs nearby. They can also be scared out of the background elements, like bushes or barrels. If attacked, they fall and turn into items. So, ducks are not enemies, but they are an element that you can attack to get you items. And I didn't worry about the dog because the dog's already a playable character. So. Alrighty then, moving on. Next up is the Street Fighter / Final Fight world, which will take place in the streets of Metro City. So, I found out recently, because I was never a big Street Fighter aficionado, I only found out recently that Street Fighter and Final Fight take place in the same universe. So as a result, it's going to be a combination of those worlds. So for their enemies, starting with the weak enemies, we have Mad Gang Thugs. So these are from Final Fight. They slowly walk around patrolling the area. When aggressive, they never turn their back to the player. They tend to close in or back away for spacing. They can throw straight punches, they can crush and do low kicks, and they can do high kicks. They can also... And rival schools as well. Yeah, I know about rival schools as well. Yeah, that's a part of the same universe, but I didn't bother including that one. But they can also pick up and use items, and they have varying appearances, but they're all the same. So, should also mention, because pretty much... No, not pretty much. Every single enemy in the Street Fighter world is a human. They can all pick up and use items. Next are the Mad Gang Headbutt Cores. They slowly walk around patrolling the area. When aggressive, they start charging toward the player head first to ram into them. After the first charge, they tend to close in or back away for spacing. They can do a kick if too close to the player. They're also naturally immune to flinching from weaker attacks because these are heavy-set guys. And again, they can have varying appearances, but they are all the same. Now getting into Bison's territory. Low-rank Shadaloo soldiers. They walk around patrolling the area. When aggressive, they never turn their back to the player. They tend to close in or back away for spacing. They can also do short dashes for movement as well. They can crouch, they can jump, they can throw straight punches, they can do low ankle kicks, and they can do an aerial straight punch to set the angle down. They have their own version of the Psycho Crusher, which is not really much of one. It's kind of a fake Psycho Crusher, honestly, which is a flying spinning tackle that ends with them landing flat on their back. And they do have a variant in the form of the ASD Shadaloo soldiers, which are the exact same as the ASY default ones, but they're like bulkier. They're more heavy set. So they're slower, but they hit harder and have more health. And they're also naturally immune to flinching from weaker attacks. Then there's medical Shadaloo soldiers, which they walk around patrolling the area, aggressive, so same deal. Can crouch, can jump, But because they're medical soldiers, they can heal other enemies, and they can also give other enemies massages to increase their damage output and movement speed for a little bit. They can stab their scalpels forward, and they can throw their scalpels forward. Do I ever wonder if all Capcom franchises take place in the same universe? Some more than others. Next are the low-rank dolls. So these are like the teenage girls that like Master Bison like brainwashed to turn into soldiers. Like, so these are all like dolls that like fight very similarly to Cammy. Walk around patrolling the area. They can also start hidden and ambush the player. Same deal as before. Never turn their back. Can crouch, can jump. Most of their attacks are very similar to Cammy's. They can do straight punches, straight backward kicks, a crouching ankle punch, an aerial drop kick while holding both legs together, and that's as such. And then for the last weak enemy that can randomly appear, it's Dan Hibiki himself. Very rarely appears in random locations to challenge you. He never turns his back and tends to close in or back away for spacing. He can crouch, he can jump, and he can block. So Dan actually has a lot of attacks. So Dan he has the most amount of attacks out of all of the weak enemies in the entirety of the adventure mode. But he's Dan Hibiki. He still sucks. So even though he has a wide variety of attacks, he doesn't really use them that well. So all of his attacks can be used individually or used in a sequence of combos, though he hardly ever strings his attacks together. For his attacks, he has a straight punch slightly angled up, an overhead chop, an underhook kick, a crouching palm thrust, a high uppercut, a low sweeping kick. He has his Siako kick, which is a high angled roundhouse kick. While airborne, he can do a straight punch slightly angled down. While airborne, he can do a straight kick slightly angled down. Ooh. Oh, excuse me. I'm getting a lot of voice cracks today. Talking more than I'm used to, again. He has his Siako Hiragoshi, which is a command grab where he struggles to lift you up and throws you, because he's not very strong also. He has his taunts. That's his thing, I guess. He likes to taunt. Drink water? I probably should, but I'm out-ish. So yeah, he has his he holds his fist up into the air and shakes it. He has his air taunt where he shouts "Woohoo!" or "Yahoo!" or whatever, Mr. Mario. He has a crouching taunt where he holds his fists up while crouching, and he has his rolling taunt where he does a roll either forward or back, then ends with his normal taunt. So, a little bit of mobility, I guess. He does have specials. He has his Dan Kokyaku, which has up to 3 hits, a flying knee jab, a straight kick, and then a second straight kick. He has his Gadoken, a fireball special that either has it shoot a quick burst in front of his hand, or a slow-moving, very short-ranged fireball, I guess. And then he has his Koryuken, which is an uppercut with 2 variants, which is a very short hop spinning uppercut or a spinning jumping uppercut. He does have super moves. He has the Hisho Buraiken, where he starts flailing his arms randomly and then ends with a spinning uppercut. The Shinku Gadoken, which is a fireball that actually gets some distance, but not much. And then his legendary taunt, where he rolls and taunts forwards a bunch, then ends with a jumping taunt that lands with a thumbs up pose. He's a joke. That is the joke. He is a joke. So. Alright, the strong Street Fighter enemies. Next are the Mad Gang Enforcers. They walk around patrolling the area. When aggressive, they never turn their back to the camera and tend to stay closer or back away for spacing. They can block. They can do overhead hammer punches. They can do straight punches or kicks. Can run at the player and do a double-armed push attack. They can grab the player and squeeze them in a chokehold to deal continuous damage. Pick up and use items, immune to flinching from weaker attacks, and also have varying appearances. Then there's the Mad Gang Assassin. They walk around patrolling the area. They like to try sneak attacks, but generally also never turn their back away. They can try to stab the player with a knife. They can also throw their knives as projectiles straight forward. They can throw Molotov cocktails into the air that burst into flames on impact. They can flip, jump into the air, and stab 2 knives downward as they fly. And then, same as before, items, flinching, appearances. Next are the mid-rank Shadaloo soldiers. So the ASRs. Walk around patrolling the area and never look away from you. They can also do dashes. They can crouch, they can jump, they can block. All of their attacks can be used individually or used in a sequence of combos. They have a straight punch, a high sideways kick, a low sideways kick with the other foot, a horizontal sideways kick, a crouching punch at the angled up, a crouching side kick, an aerial straight kick angled down, a command grab where they knee your character in the face, then hammer punches you to the ground. They have the Psycho Crusher like the low rank ones do. They also have Psycho Tackle where they shoulder charge and where they do a shoulder charge and do a straight punch. They have the Psycho Dive Kick where they jump into the air with a spin, then do an angled kick downward, and the spinning jump can drag players up with it. Can also pick up items and immune to flinching from weaker attacks. And the mid-rank soldiers have a stronger variant in the form of the high-rank Shadaloo soldiers, which are the ASMs. Slightly stronger and have more health. They can block and deflect, so they can straight up knock you away if they want to. They can also do quick rolls to dodge attacks, and they also have the Psycho Elbows, which is a rising attack while holding both elbows forward, then do a backflip to land. And this does act as an anti-air attack. And then the last of these strong Street Fighter enemies are the mid-rank dolls. So these are the stronger teenage girl mind control people. So can crouch, can jump. All of their attacks can be used individually or in a sequence of combos. Most of their attacks are very similar to Cammy's. A straight punch, a lateral hammer punch, a straight backwards kick forward, a low to high diagonal roundhouse kick, a crouching straight kick, a low breakdancing sweep kick while holding both legs together, an aerial drop kick while stabbing both legs forward. They use Psycho stun guns, Psycho Sun guns, I don't know what that is, which fires a whole sun at you. Now, fires a shot that paralyzes the player, so now they're stealing from Zero Suit Samus. They also have Psycho Grenades, which throws a grenade that explodes after a set time and stuns all players caught in it. And they have a variant in the form of the high-rank dolls. So just like the high-rank soldiers, they're slightly stronger and more and bulkier versions of the mid-rank ones, which can also deflect. But they also have the spinning knuckle attack, which is a quick spin into a backhanded punch. And the high-rank dolls are also able to summon low-rank and mid-rank dolls to the arena as well. Now for the Street Fighter mini-bosses. Next is the Adorne family. So these are the big wrestler dudes that kind of deal. I don't know why they walk like that. It's weird, but whatever. You can fight multiple members of the family at once depending on the difficulty. They never turn their back to the player. Also tend to close in or back away for spacing. Can pick up and use items, and to have varying appearances. For their attacks, they can do straight punches. They can jump into the air and try to ground pound the player. They're more likely to do this if the player falls to the ground. Can charge at the player and ram at them with their chest. Can grab the player and lift them into the air by their neck to choke them, dealing continuous damage. Can grab the player, then jump to pile drive them into the ground. They can also jump off screen, then drive back in their car to try to hit and run the player. And when they disappear off screen, they return without the car. Then for the other mini-boss of the Street Fighter world, it's Sagat. So this is kind of a weird one for me because I guess technically Sagat doesn't really work for Shadaloo anymore, but I feel like when I think of the biggest enforcer of Shadaloo, it has to be Sagat. Also, I misspelled Sagat. I said that should be enough. Okay. Pichu, please try to keep the questions on topic. I'm not answering or addressing any comments that aren't on topic, please. Alright, so Sagat. So same as before, never turns it back to the player. Can crouch, can jump, can block, he can deflect. He can flinch, but only from really strong attacks. All of his attacks can be used individually. The music stopped. There we go. Or used in a sequence of combos. When at half health, he gets angry, where he hits harder and some of his moves gain new attributes. Can also pick up and use items. Sagat is a mini-boss. For his attacks, he has an elbow jab, a straight punch, a low-angled side kick, a straight kick, a high-angled side kick, a crouching straight punch, a crouching low straight sweep kick, his low step kick where he steps forward and then does an angled sweeping kick, his high step kick where he steps forward with a high roundhouse kick, an airborne knee jab, an airborne straight kick, an airborne low-angled kick. He has Tiger Carry, which is a command grab where he picks you up and then chucks you backward. And he has Tiger Rage, where he picks you up by your face, knee jabs you a bunch, then launches you with the last knee jab. He has his Focus attack from Street Fighter 4, where he charges, then does a pincer attack between his elbow and knee, and getting hit by this will paralyze you. He can taunt randomly, where he does a pondering pose with his hand, then to his chin, then smirks, which just leaves him vulnerable. It doesn't actually do anything. But he will stop using this overall when he gets angry. He has his specials, which includes Tiger Shot, which has him shoot a fire energy shot forward with both fists. He can also do this while crouching to do a lower one. Let me do that. There we go. He has his Tiger Uppercut, a jumping spinning uppercut with forward momentum. And when angry, this move will drag you along. He has his Tiger Knee Crush, a forward jumping knee thrust. And he also has Fake Kick, where he pretends to kick to fake you out, which, if you're not careful, could actually catch you off guard. And then he has his supers. He has Angry Charge, which powers up the damage of his next Tiger Uppercut, but he'll only do this when angry. He has Tiger Raid, which is a barrage of attacks that ends with a flying kick. Tiger Genocide, which starts with Tiger Crush, then is followed up by Tiger Uppercut. And then Tiger Destruction, which starts with Tiger Crush, followed up by 2 Tiger Uppercuts, and he'll only use that one when angry. So, as such, the world boss of the Street Fighter world is Master Bison himself. And I did mention before how the Street Fighter world will have 2 world bosses. So it's Master Bison by default, but on rare occasions, or if you complete certain prerequisites well enough, you can fight Akuma instead. I haven't gone over Akuma yet. I'm going to save all the extra bosses for a later point, which actually reminds me, I almost forgot. The Xenoblade world also has a second boss. The Telethia is the normal default Xenoblade Chronicles world boss, but the harder alternative boss for Xenoblade Chronicles is Zanza. So that'll go over at a later point once I actually make those. How much did you miss, Malik? First off, welcome, Malik. How much we went over Pac-Man, Xenoblade, Duck Hunt, and is that it? We're on Street Fighter now. See, you have missed quite a bit, but you should be able to watch back on them on the VOD. All right, so Master Bison. So again, never turned his back. Can do long dashes and such. Can crouch, can jump, can block and deflect. He can use his attacks individually or in a sequence of combos. When his health drops low enough, he will become Final Bison, which is like the Black Cloak Bison. He hits much harder, is much faster, and tends to block everything. He's incredibly difficult. But his health will slowly drain while in this state, so you can outlive him if you do things properly. Alright, so attacks: a straight punch with the other arm, a straight punch with his arm covered in Psycho Energy, a knee jab, a straight side kick, a high-angled side kick, a crouching straight punch, a crouching straight punch with his arm covered in Psycho Energy, a crouching uppercut with his arm covered in Psycho Energy, a crouching low straight sweep kick, a hovering slide kick, which he loves to spam. So anyone that plays Street Fighter should know what this move is. It's the slide kick. He loves to spam it. An airborne straight punch with his arms covered in Psycho Energy. An airborne low-angled punch thrust with his arm covered in Psycho Energy. An airborne straight kick. An airborne low-angled straight kick. Deadly Throw, which is a command grab where he pulls you past him to reel up and throws you forward. And Death Tower, a command grab where he kicks you, then lashes you onto his foot and turns to chuck you backward off his foot. He has his Focus attack where he chuckles with his arms crossed while charging, then does a double cycle palm thrust straight forward, and getting hit by this will paralyze you. Does Bison get stronger on Tuesdays? Sure, why not? All right, so he has his specials, the Psycho Shot, where he shoots a kind of slow-moving, not a kind slow-moving, it's not that kind, a kind of slow-moving spark shot forward. The double knee press, where he does a front flip to swing, to swing his feet forward from high to low. I think this is also called the scissor kick in some games, but this move hits twice. He has his head press, where he jumps over the foe and stomps on their head, which he can also follow this. He can also follow this up with Skull Driver, which is where he dives down after jumping off your head with a psycho-covered hand. Devil Reverse, where he jumps into the air as if he's about to use head press, but fakes you out and jumps away, then follows up with the Skull Driver toward the foe. He has Psycho Crusher, where he charges forward while spinning sideways longitudinally, and his body is covered in Psycho Energy, so it's his high mobility, very strong attack. And he has the Bison Warp, which is his teleport. He teleports while chuckling quite a bit. For his supers, he has the Knee Press Nightmare, where he uses the knee press twice in a row that ends it with a slide kick. He has the Nightmare Booster, where he uses 2 knee presses into his Psycho Crusher to bring them into the air, then push them back into the ground and end it with a head press down on them. And then Psycho Punisher uses a head press to launch the foe up, then he grabs them by the head and stabs them in the gut with his Psycho Palm and pulls their energy, leaving the foe helpless on the ground. So yeah, Bison's a threat, as he probably should be, because he's Bison. Oh, I get it, because Bison can't use his power peak because his body can. Yeah, so that's why this happens here, because it's said that when he uses the final Bison state, it actively like destroys his body. So that's what's happening here. So that's why he only uses it at low health as like a desperation thing. So he becomes incredibly hard to fight, but if you can outlive him, it could also be an easy win. It just depends on how you do it. So that is the Street Fighter / Final Fight world. What do you guys think? Was Psycho Drain mentioned already? No, I didn't include Psycho Drain. The world has Dan that makes it peak, sure. Dan Kokyaku is not a real word. Stop making up words, Dan. Pretty good. Guessing other fighters aren't in because they are evil? What do you mean by that? I was thinking you want to fight all the characters from Street Fighter 2. I didn't feel a need to do that because I included the final fight kind of deal. So it's mostly like you're fighting the Mad Gang and as well as Shadow Lu. That's what you're fighting. And then Dan, who's just dumb. Why aren't other fighters in? Well, yeah, it's just the Mad Gang and Shadow Lu. That's it. Like, I could have included Vega and Balrog, but if I did, I feel like they'd both have to be mini bosses in place of Sagat and the Adorne family, and I really wanted to have the Adorne family. So because I feel like you can't really have Balrog and Vega without the other, if that makes sense, because they're normally like, you know, that. All right. Anyway, let's continue on. The Final Fantasy world. So these are mostly just like the common monsters that show up in majority of the Final Fantasy games. So you're not going to see any specific character from like a Final Fantasy game. It's just the monsters. So starting off, we have goblins. They walk around patrolling the area, typically found in packs. When aggressive, they strike forward with their knife. They can use Goblin Punch, which deals random damage, but it does have a cap. And they tend to run away at low health. But they are able to pick up and use items. And they have a variant in the form of the Goblin Print, which are rarer blue-skinned versions, drop rarer items when defeated, are more likely to run away, but they can also use Sleep, where they throw more pocket sand at you, which will put you to sleep. It's like it's not just pocket sand, it's sleeping pocket sand. Next are Moos, which are like the little like squirrel creature kind of deals. They walk around patrolling the area. They can also appear from underground. When aggressive, they swing their tails forward. They can also throw rocks at the players. I just realized Moos are very similar to Pepetes, or whatever they're called, from Xenoblade. Interesting. Whatever. Moos can also burrow underground to move to a different spot. Then there are Bombs, the floating fireball dudes. They float around patrolling the area. When aggressive, they can breathe a stream of fire forward. They have their fireball attack, where they spit a single fireball at the player. When they take damage, their body begins to swell. And they have self-destruct, where when at low health, they'll blow themselves up, dealing damage to everyone within radius. The more their body was swelled, the bigger and stronger the explosion will be. There is a bit of startup before they blow, though, so they can be KO'd before they can get it off. But they also take extra damage from ice and water-based attacks. Ice and water attacks will also reduce the swelling, and they take no damage from fire attacks. That's something I actually probably got to go back and look into a little more, like what enemies in general would be weak to certain elements. Let's see. Next are Were-Rats. They walk around patrolling the area. They only fight in packs. When aggressive, they run around trying to surround the player. They attack with scratch and bite attacks. All attacks have a chance to poison the player, and they have the move Call to Arms, where they can summon more Were-Rats. This is only used though if there are only 1 or 2 Were-Rats left. And they, in general, take extra damage from ice. Hedgehog Pies. Despite being called hedgehogs, they're actually more frog-like, which is weird. I don't know why they did that. I guess they're frogs with spikes in their backs, but whatever. They hop around patrolling the area. When aggressive, they leap at the player for a body blow attack. They can spit fireballs at the player. They can roll up and try to bounce on the player's head over and over again, so they roll up, I guess. So, hedgehog-esque, I guess. And they also take extra damage from ice attacks. Drakes, so like small flying draconic-like creatures, fly around patrolling the area. When aggressive, they glide down to try to ram the player. They have Tornado, where they flap their wings to create a small tornado under the player's location, which will launch them into the air. And if hit by a wind box, they will stumble and become vulnerable. So they're actually, because they're weak to wind normally in Final Fantasy, so hitting them with wind box attacks will cause them to stumble. Stronger enemies, Death Claws. So these are like the weird, like alien abomination looking things that have like these big creepy claws that like come out of the side of its body. Walk around patrolling the area. When aggressive, they immediately cast Barrier, which reduces damage for itself and all nearby enemies. They have high aggro, and they will not let up once they get aggressive. They have their Claw attack, where they slash its claws forwards. They have Death Claw, where they try to grab the player with its claws. When caught, the player will need to mash buttons to escape. Caught players take constant damage, and once they get away, the player's movement speed will be reduced for a limited time. They have Laser, where they fire a bunch of lasers from its claws forward toward the player's location, and the lasers do fly in different angles. And Death Claws are also immune to flinching and cannot be grabbed. Then there's Coeurl. Coeurl are like the panther-like creatures, the panther creatures with like the big like whisker tendrils or whatever. Walk around patrolling the area. They may also be found resting, but are quick to wake. When aggressive, they hound the player with quick movements. Can lunge forward with a lateral claw swipe, lateral, not laterally. It can whip its whiskers forward, causing lightning damage. It can spin to whip his whiskers all around laterally. It can leap up to try to pounce the player. If this lands, it pins the player down and bites them. The player can't escape with mashing buttons. It has Blaster, where it lays down and starts charging lightning from its whiskers. When charged, it fires a strong lightning blast toward the player. If this lands, the player will be paralyzed, but it also has a chance to automatically KO them. so do not get hit by Blaster. It can whip, but can it nay-nay? Excellent question. Get back to me on that. The Corals do take extra damage from fire, reduced damage from lightning, immune to flinching from weaker attacks, and cannot be grabbed. Next are Tonberries. We all know what Tonberries are, right? Rarer enemies that drop rare items when defeated. They slowly walk around patrolling the area, and they have a lot of health. When aggressive, they slowly walk toward the player. When close, it'll stab its knife forward. This has a chance to automatically KO the player. The higher the player's damage, the more likely they are to be KO'd. It has Scourge, which casts a spell that holds the player in place for a limited time, and the player can mash buttons to escape faster. Tonberries are also immune to flinching and cannot be grabbed. So, is that the guy on the right of the screen? Nope, that is the next character we're going to talk about. And, scarily enough, the Tonberries actually do have a single variant in the form of the Master Tonberry. A very, very rare enemy, so you're not likely to see this, and if anything, you're unlucky if you see this. Defeating this enemy grants you an automatic extra stock, so it could be worth defeating if you think you can. It has a very high health, and the move Everyone's Grudge, a knife stab that gets stronger based on the number of enemies you've KO'd across the entire adventure mode. This replaces the normal knife attack. It has a chance to KO the player with the chance increasing based on the number of enemies KO'd. If you KO'd a certain number of enemies, this will instead always KO you. Tonberries are scary! It also has Bone Deep Grudge. Casts a spell that stops the player for a limited time. This replaces Scourge, but the amount of time you remain frozen is also based on the number of enemies you've KO'd across the entire adventure mode. The more you KO'd, the longer you'll be stuck. Alright. So yeah, Tonberries are scary. But as they should be. Like, no one has any... I know it's scary, but no one has any arguments about that, right? Because that's just what Tonberries are. That's just what they do. We are on Final Fantasy. Bayonetta will be next, and Bayonetta will also be last. For this stream, anyway. Alright, last strong enemy of the Final Fantasy world, the Cactuar. So that's what's on the side of the screen here. Also pretty rare enemies. At first, they just stand still and only start moving once they see you. They move very fast, so they're hard to catch and hit. And usually they just run away. But they also have the move 1000 Needles, where they shoot needles all around itself. This cannot be shielded, and if hit by the whole attack, deals 100% of damage. I thought about making it 1000% damage, but the number cannot go that high, and that might be a little bit overkill. Tonberries cannot be grabbed, and attempting to grab them will deal you, because they are cacti after all. So, yeah. Alrighty, the Final Fantasy mini-bosses. First is Malboro. So that's the giant, like, swampy tentacle monster or whatever. Large, slow-moving enemy. It can burrow underground and move to different locations in the area. For their attacks, they can lean forward for a bite attack, and this will paralyze the player. Can whip one of its tentacles forwards laterally across the ground. This pops the player into the air, and it can do this twice in a row with 2 tentacles. Can smash its tentacles into the ground forward. It has Tentacle Whirl, where it spins around to swing its tentacles all around, and it can do this while sitting still or moving. The signature Bad Breath, where it breathes toxic fumes forwards, dealing chip damage if it hits. It always starts fights with this attack, and getting hit by this can cause a few different effects on the player. Confuse, which reverses the player's horizontal controls. Poison, self-explanatory. Darkness, which blinds the player, locking out their basic attacks. Silence, which mutes the player, locking out their special attacks. Sleep, self-explanatory. Shrink, self-explanatory. And Toad, which turns the player into a frog for a little bit. They can also use Biora, which conjures a glob of poison in the air at the player's location and explodes soon after. It follows the player's spot and only stops right before it explodes, giving the player just enough time to get away, and this poisons the player if it hits. Acid, where it spits a glob of acid on the ground that sits in that spot for a little bit. Stepping in the acid slows you down and poisons you. And then Chow Down, where it chomps forwards, and if it hits, it swallows you and chews you before automatically spitting you back out. You take constant damage while in its mouth, and damage once you're spat out, and once spat out, you'll be inflicted with both poison and silence. Can the player do anything as a frog? They can hop. They can hop around. And that's about it. Second mini-boss of the Final Fantasy world, Behemoth. A large enemy that moves all around the arena. It can walk, run, jump, and dash. At half health, it gets angry where it hits harder and uses new moves. Had to leave for a bit. What game are we on? We are on Final Fantasy. Yeah, it's a mini-boss. Behemoth's attacks. A lateral claw swing forward. It can also swing its claw back into the other direction for a second attack. It can smash its claw into the ground in front of itself. It has gyro tail, where it does a spinning leap to swing its tail all around, and can also change its landing direction during the spin. It can lunge at the player with a pouncing attack to try to ram them. It can use heave, where it swings its horn from low to high. It can do this while standing still or lunge at the player first. It has Comet, where it summons a single meteor that explodes when it hits the ground. The explosion also releases a shockwave that travels across the entire arena. Maelstrom, where, while angry, summons an electric tornado around its body that pulls the player towards it. Touching the tornado deals chip damage. Then Meteor. Where while angry, it summons meteors all over the arena that explode on impact with the ground. The explosions release small shockwaves that travel a bit across the ground, and a direct shot from the meteor will deal a lot of shield damage. Then the world boss that I've chosen for the Final Fantasy world, I've chosen to be, fittingly enough, Bahamut. The big summon dude that generally will mess you up. Flies around in the air, takes reduced damage from its wings. Periodically throughout the fight, a countdown will begin from 5. During this countdown, it uses new attacks, and once the countdown reaches 0, it will use Mega Flare. For Bahamut's attacks, a claw swipe toward the player. It can do this twice in a row with each arm to use cross impact. Spin Rush, where it charges horizontally across the screen while spinning, and getting caught, and this will drag the player along. Dive Bomb, where it flies off screen and smashes down from the top. This causes a shockwave that expands, and you'll know where it's about to land based on the spot that preemptively flares up with ash. Bind Impulse, a command grab. It swipes with its claw, and getting hit by it will have it pick you up, then shoot you at point blank with a shot from its mouth, which knocks you away. Flare Breath. It breathes fire toward the ground all around its position. Getting hit by this will deal chip damage. I don't know why I didn't finish writing that. It can flick to swing its wings out with a wide low to high attack, and during the countdown, this move also fires a crescent beam blade forward. Quintessent. Give me a second to figure out how to say this one. Quintessence. It's Quintessence. There we go. I don't know why that one took me a bit. Quintessence. Summons a few orbs of I can't spell or read today, can't I, guys? Of electricity that slowly follow the player's location and explode on impact. They can be destroyed with attacks. Aura Burst releases a burst of energy from its body that knocks the player away. During the countdown, is that a double space? Yeah, it was. During the countdown, this becomes Umbral Aura, which does the same thing but gains a new effect. After using this, its body is surrounded by a black aura that deals chip damage to the player if they're too close to Bahamut. Umbral Frenzy. During the countdown, it can start slashing ahead with its claws constantly and moves forward, alternating claws. Umbral Inferno. During the countdown, it can fire a huge barrage of shots that fly into all directions. Some shots will fly straight and others will home in on the player. The straight shots deal minor hit stun and the homing shots deal no hit stun. Then lastly is Mega Flare, only used once the countdown reaches 0. Bahamut will fly into the background and fire a massively powerful beam into the area toward the player's location. When that beam makes impact, it explodes into a large pillar that rises up. Getting hit by this move will automatically KO the player. It is possible to dodge by simply getting out of its way. Alrighty, so that is the Final Fantasy world. What do you guys think of this? Or the Final Fantasy enemies, I should say. Because the world itself hasn't actually been built yet. It's just the enemies. Yeah, so the funny thing, I should actually make a note here. This will be one of the later worlds you can visit. So, because of that, because of the idea that this is by default a harder world that you can only visit like later on in a playthrough, that guarantees that Master Tonberry will be incredibly dangerous no matter what. You can't just cheese it by like coming here first. No, it has to be a world that you visit much later. So because of that, there's going to be a lot of enemies that you're going to end up fighting. So, alrighty. So last world that we're going to go ahead and go over for this stream is the Bayonetta world. Alrighty. So for this one, I guess to go ahead and get this out of the way real quick. For this world, I only used angels. I did look at like the demons and the homunculi. I decided I'm gonna go ahead and just stick strictly to angels. That's the only enemies that are gonna show up here. So it will be angels that show up in all 3 games, but it's only angels you fight for this world. So, first enemy, Affinity. So these are like the common Mook angels of the first game. They walk around or fly around patrolling the area. They can switch between ground and air. They can also appear from magic circles. When aggressive, they may attack with a lateral cross swipe. They can swing their staff laterally at you. They can charge up their staff, causing the top to spin like a buzzsaw, then slam it on the ground in front, swinging it longitudinally from high to low. And when at low health, they tend to go berserk, where they become immune to flinching from weaker attacks, and their attacks move faster. And they do have 2 variants, in the form of the Trumpet Affinity, where they use trumpets instead of staffs, so they have no staff attacks, but they fire energy orb projectiles from the trumpets at the player. And then Applauds, which are larger, slightly stronger versions of Affinity, which are naturally immune to flinching from weaker attacks, and after spinning their staff, they can do a spinning charge attack forward. They can also leap up and slam their staff into the ground, and this replaces the normal staff smash attack. So, a big thing with the Bayonetta world is that this would also be a world that would definitely be like an end of adventure mode world to visit. This would naturally be a harder world, because even some of the easier enemies have variants that should really be counted as strong enemies. So, Applaud, while being a variant of a weak enemy, really should count as a strong enemy. So the Bayonetta world more than likely has more strong enemies than any other world because of that. I guess not counting the Xenoblade world, which has the unique monsters, but the unique monsters are at least rare. So, next up, Acceptance. So these are like the centaur dudes. They walk around patrolling the area. They can fly in or appear from magic circles. When aggressive, they can swing their spears laterally at you. They can swing their spears longitudinally from high to low, slamming the ground. They can stab their spear with a slight downward angle. They can also raise their spear into the air and then leap forward to thrust their spear ahead slightly downward as it lands. And they also have 2 variants. They have the Harp Acceptance, which instead of a spear, they use the harp, so they have completely different attacks. They can fire 3 spreading arrows. So they use their harps like bows. So they can fire 3 arrows into the air, spreading arrows at you, or they can fire arrows into the air that rain down into the player's spot. Longitudinally from high to low. Do you mean latitude? No, laterally is this. Longitudinally is this. Like, this is lateral. This is longitudinal. I believe that's the case. I couldn't mixing them up. If I am mixing this up, like, I got a lot of words to replace. But I'm fairly certain that this is longitudinally and this is laterally. All right. And then the other variant, which is also technically a strong variant of acceptance, is Accolade. A larger, stronger version with red armor. It can do 2 diagonal spear swings in a row. If you're behind it, it can horse kick you, so don't be behind it. And it's also immune to flinching from weaker attacks. Then there's deer. So deer are like the floating, like the flying like heads with wings. Up to down is laterally, side to side is longitudinally. Are you sure? No. No, laterally is side to side. I just looked it up. Yeah, laterally is side to side. You looked at... Well, I'm looking it up too. Longitudinally measured from east to west? What? Wait, how is laterally side to side then? Longitudinal is spanning the length of the body, and lateral is spanning the width of the body. So longitudinal should be... Yeah. Wait, no, so then longitudinal should be spanning up to down, if that's length, and then lateral is spanning width, which is side to side. Okay, now I'm confused. Maybe I had to get them backwards? Yeah, lateral and longitudinal, like on maps. Which is it? Horizontal lines are lateral lines, vertical lines are longitudinal lines. This is confusing. All right, whatever. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out later. All right. Anyway, deers. So yeah. Heads with like wings on their sides. Fly around patrolling the area, always found in groups of decorations. They can appear from magic circles. When aggressive, they can fire energy shots at you, and they can spin at you and they can charge at you with a spinning headbutt. And they also have the power to summon more decorations. Decorations are like the smaller, so deers are like the big versions. Decorations are the smaller versions. They can also have decorations orbit themselves to create a shield. In order to get rid of the shield, you have to kill all the decorations first before you can start hurting the deer. And then, as a result, the decoration itself is, of course, a variant, being a smaller, weaker version of deer. They always appear in swarms. Sometimes they'll be with deer, but some can appear without deer. They do not have the energy shot attack, but they can latch onto you for biting attacks, dealing constant chip damage until knocked off. Then there's Cachette, or Cachet. I think that's Cachet. So these are like kind of the same thing as Deer and Decorations. Like, so, yeah, so Deer and Decorations and Cachet and Compassions are kind of the same thing. But Deer and Decorations are more like the long range kind of deals. Cachet and Compassions are more melee based. So, always found in groups of Compassions. They can appear from magic circles. When aggressive, they'll bring out a sword from their bottom and swing it laterally at you. They can also do a front flip to swing the sword longitudinally at you. We'll figure out how accurate those two words are here in a bit. Mighty low. They can charge at you with a sword stab. They can turn their sword into a drill and shoot it at you, causing it to travel across the ground once it hits the ground. And for their and Compassions are their smaller, weaker variants, which always appear in swarms. So same deal as the Decorations, but they do not have the drill attacks. Next are Enchants. So Enchants are like these wheel type enemies. Slowly roll around patrolling the area. They may be found lying on their sides. When aggressive, they'll catch fire and roll towards the player trying to run into them. To try running them down. They can also split in half and try to rush the player with electricity to electrocute them. Then there are Enraptures. So Enraptures are these weird, like, four-armed, like, floating things that carry these long staffs. Slowly float around patrolling the area. When aggressive, they can fire energy or projectiles at you. If too close, wow, that was the weirdest wisp of all time. Lisp! BJ! Talk! In front of audience! Learn how to do it! Anyway. It will telepathically stab its staff at you over and over to try to knock you away. They can also cast a spell in your spot that can ensnare you, trapping you in place, though you can dodge this by simply moving out of the way. It can also start chanting, which will enrage all present enemies. While chanting, it can't move, and as soon as it stops chanting, the buff will end. Attacking it will also stop the chanting immediately. Enraged enemies generally will move faster and hit harder. So now for the strong Bayonetta enemies, the Angels, we have Fairness. They walk around patrolling the area. So these are like the dog-like enemies, like the quadruped Angels. When aggressive, they slowly approach you. They can also dash backward for space. They can spit lava balls at the player. They can also do lateral claw sweeps. And they can also lunge forward for a bite attack. If this connects, Fairness will shake the player in their mouth and spit them into the ground. They can also do a reckless charge attack, but if it hits a wall during this, it crashes and stuns itself, leaving it vulnerable. At lower health, it can do an ear-piercing roar, which will stun all players who are within range. They're naturally immune to flinching from weaker attacks and cannot be grabbed, and they do have an electric variant in the form of Fearless, which replace their fire attribute attacks with lightning, move faster. They lose the lava ball attack, but they gain a move where they can stab its extending tail at the player to try to electrocute them with the taser on the tip of its tail. And they can also fire a beam from their mouth straight forward. So there's that. So they are technically stronger than Fairness. Next are Beloved, which are these giant, like, Goliath-looking enemies that carry axes. They slowly walk around patrolling the area. They take reduced damage from all attacks, but they do take extra damage from the glowing red spot on their back. When aggressive, it can swing its battle axe toward the player laterally. It can do a stomp attack with one foot, which deals a lot of hits done. If the player is behind them, they can reach behind to try to grab you. If they do grab you, they'll squeeze you in their hand until you escape. And if the player is behind them, they can also do a turning backhanded clothesline attack. They're also completely immune to flinching and cannot be grabbed because they're too big. Excuse me. Next is Grace and Glory. So these are like the pair of like giant, or they're not giant, but like they fight with they're these fast, nimble claw enemies. Like Grace is the fire one, Glory is the electric one. So Grace and Glory are always paired together. They walk around patrolling the area. When aggressive, they move quickly with darting movements and short hops. They have a 3-hit combo attack, which includes a diagonal swipe to low, a spinning rising swipe, and then a jumping uppercut. They can do a jumping claw attack that starts with it scraping its claws on the ground, and this ends with it falling and smashing its claws on the ground. It can extend it can extend and swing both of its arms from high to low, smashing the ground with its claws. So like the claws are like connected to its body by like, I guess the fire one's connected by like flames, and electric one's connected by like electricity. So they can extend their claws out like tethers, kind of. So they can launch an extending claw forward to the ground, then pull itself toward it, coming down with a claw swipe. And this can also be used out of the 3-hit combo, technically turning it into a 4-hit combo, but whatever. They do have a wake-up attack where they can get up and spin with their claws held out. They are immune to flinching from weaker attacks, and they cannot be grabbed. And like I said, Grace is the fire, Gloria is electric. Last strong enemy is Kinship. So these are like literal like battleship kind of like small like canoe-like battleships that float around in the air. They take reduced damage from all attacks, but they do take extra damage if you attack the red glowing weak point on the bridge. You can stand on top of this enemy because they are ships, so they do act as like enemy platforms. When aggressive, the bridge opens to fire a barrage of homing missiles that follow the player. It can attack by extending chained or-like claws. These follow the player's location to try to stab you, and it will strike at you with these if you stand on top of them for too long. Canoe-like battleship. Yeah, I know. It's a weird statement, but that's kind of the best way I can describe them. I guess maybe they're not really ships, canoes. I guess gondola is probably a closer word for it. Like a water gondola. What do you call those? No, I guess gondolas are water, aren't they? I don't know. Do I plan on doing a full video with how the adventure mode pans out? Yeah, I will. Like once my hand is like fixed, I would like alongside my movesets, which I will prioritize getting back to once my hand is fixed. I would like to make videos going over this entire moveset like in more detail and like better like visuals and whatnot instead of just me explaining it with text and whatnot and whatever. But I probably will do like one world per video. It's like a Mario video, a DK video, yada yada. Anyway, Kinship. They can fire a thin horizontal laser from the muzzle on its front. When it's KO'd, its charred body remains floating in the spot where it was KO'd, acting as a new platform. They are also immune to flinching and cannot be grabbed. They are too big. Alright, the mini-bosses of the Bayonetta world. First is Inspired, the giant snake-like flying enemies. Sometimes it floats in a stationary spot, or it flies around constantly in the air. They take slightly reduced damage. They naturally take slightly reduced damage from all attacks. For their attacks, they can spit large fireballs at the player. They can also do this while flying toward the player after shooting the fire. And after shooting the fireball, it may veer off or just keep charging toward the player. It can snap at the player with a quick bite. It can charge across the ground with a swooping bite attack. Sometimes it may do a spiraling ascension before using. Sometimes it may use a spiraling ascension before using the charge attack, which can knock the player away. It can charge across the screen in multiple directions and can even go vertically, burrowing and emerging from underground. And it can twist its body to swing its tail laterally in a full circle. And it can tend to do this multiple times in a row. But it can do it low with the head held high or high with the head held low. So it's kind of like, if its head's like this, it can like start swinging like down here, or the head will be down here and like start swinging up here. So it just depends on your position. And then the second mini boss of the Bayonetta world will be Valiance. So this is like the large headless knight with his face implanted into the hilt of his sword. I did think about using Valor instead, who was like the guy with the shield. But looking at the boss fight, I think Valiance is the better pick here. Plus, apparently Valiance was supposed to show up in Bayonetta 1, but didn't. So, anyway, a large enemy that follows you around. It takes extra damage if you attack the face on the sword. Attacking its legs or back enough may cause it to stagger and drop the sword, causing the face to stick out in a panic and be left vulnerable until the body regains its composure and picks and picks the sword back up. For its attacks, it can swing its sword laterally toward the player's location. Can sweep the sword low to the ground, which it can do this twice in a row. It can swing its sword longitudinally upward. It can do an overhead sword swing, smashing the ground. And it is able to also use this as a follow-up to the upward slash. It can run forward with its sword slicing through the ground, then swing it upward longitudinally once it gets close enough to the player. It has a number of attacks that it can in general use if you get too close to its legs, so it doesn't like you being close to its legs. Relatable, honestly. It can stab its sword into the ground. It can stomp the ground with a single foot, which will bury you. Or if the player is directly under Valiance, it can try to reach down with its free hand to grab the player, and if it does grab you, it'll pick you up and slam you into the ground, then try to stab down on you. It can do a spinning jump, swinging its sword all around it as it spins. It can fire a bunch of arrows into the air that all rain down around the player's location, and then explode soon after landing, but the arrows can be destroyed before they explode. And lastly, it has it can jump high into the air, then land back down with a sword stab into the ground, and this causes quick shock waves that travel across the ground. And I should also make mention, you'll know where it's about to land thanks to the drop shadow that appears. Alright, then for the world boss that I've decided for the Bayonetta world, it's going to be Fortuna, who is the giant two-headed dragon. And I did decide as well, the Bayonetta world will actually have two bosses, with Fortuna being the default, and the alternative, much harder one will be Jubileus, which Jubileus I will work on another time. For now, I only have Fortuna now. After digging a little more and talking with Mom, I concluded that latitude and laterally are not synonyms to each other. Latitude is up and down, laterally is side to side. Gotcha. Weird, but gotcha. Okay, so technically we were both right. And wrong. I don't know how we pulled that one off, but... Okay, I gotcha. Anyway. Fortuna, a large enemy that remains in a stationary spot. It can fly around in the air and land in new spots. And when it's at low health, it will get angry and start using new attacks. For Fortuna's attacks, it'll lunge its head at you for a snapping bite. When angry, if this connects, double space, it will chew on the player and rack up damage until you can escape. It can't smash both heads into the ground in front of itself, but there's a chance for the heads to get stuck, leaving it vulnerable, though this is less likely to happen while it's angry. It can swing its head across the ground in a hook motion, and it can do this while stationary or after leaping toward the player. Both heads can bite over and over while low to the ground. It can stomp its feet, causing shockwaves that expand outward. It can spin to whip its tail laterally across the ground. It can stab its tail into the ground, causing it to protrude out from under the player's location. It can spit lava balls at the player. It can do this once or twice in a row from each head. It can do a quick lateral spin, breathing fire at the ground, leaving the ground scorched, BJ, for a bit. And it's more likely to do this if you're close to it. And you will take constant damage if you're too close to the scorch. Then lastly, while angry, it can fly into the background, then breathe fire from the body face from its body face toward the stage. Getting caught in this deals constant damage, and after using this, flame pillars will begin to erupt under the player's location over and over until Fortuna returns to the arena. So that is the Bayonetta world. What do you guys think? Yes, like you guys think it won't be that big a deal that I only use angels and just avoided the demons and the homunculi? Alright. Well, in that case, that will do it for this stream then. So I guess, does anyone here have any other questions regarding kind of what I went over today or adventure mode stuff that I went over in the past? Leave demons for Devil May Cry? Fair enough. Or Doom. Yeah, fair enough. Doom. Yeah. Actually, that's a good point, actually. If I ever decide to, like, expand this out into, like, what-if series, like, yeah, let's keep Bayonetta with angels, because there's plenty of other series out there that, you know, where you fight demons. I can't immediately think of another series aside from Bayonetta where you fight angels. So, fair argument, actually. You just happy Tonberry's here? Alrighty then, guys. That is what I'm going to go ahead and call it then. Thank you so much for sticking around and listening to me ramble on and stammer over my words like a stuttering idiot. So, alrighty. So it'll probably be a bit before we get before the next adventure mode stream, because as you can see, like next up is Splatoon and so on, and I have not properly started these. I got to actually start researching these ones now. So if I stream tomorrow or Thursday, it'll probably be another rewatching of the my old moveset videos or something else. It just depends on whatever I feel like doing. But alright, thank you guys so much for watching, and have a good night, everyone.